Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of my classic match review series where in each entry I take a look at one very special match from the pre-2000s era of professional wrestling and I review said match and provide commentary on what I think about the match, what it meant to me when I was younger, and what I think of it now, having given it a rewatch. I do realize that today is the 18th anniversary of the famous Undertaker vs. Mankind Hell in a Cell match. And when I heard that today and I saw all the pictures and all the tweets going up on social media, I thought, man, maybe I should have done that one for the classic match review series. But part of what I planned to do with this series was to cover matches that were classic to me in terms of, they meant a lot to me personally in my youth for one reason or another, and they don't always get mentioned a lot. So that was one of the goals on this, was to bring up matches that were classic to me but don't always get a lot of attention for one reason or another. And that's really been the main focus of this particular series, to bring attention to matches that probably should get a little bit more attention. And I explain why I feel they should get more attention. So for this series, for this entry in the series, we're going to talk about a Hulk Hogan steel cage match, from 1989. Now, during this year, Hulk Hogan was entangled in a feud with Macho Man Randy Savage. Obviously, they had their big championship match heading into WrestleMania 5 that year. But Hulk Hogan also had another big feud in '89. He had actually feuded with the Big Bossman in the Twin Towers, which was actually used as kind of a backdrop to the Savage feud, where the Twin Towers were responsible for eliminating Hogan from the '89 Royal Rumble match. That eventually turned into that big main event match where the Twin Towers took on the Mega Powers, where Elizabeth got hurt, and it ultimately led to the Savage-Hogan split, which set up WrestleMania 5. But Hogan and Bossman had unresolved issues, so they ended up having a series of matches on live events, Coliseum videotapings, what have you, and eventually had a steel cage match on an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event after Hogan had won the title from Savage at WrestleMania 5. That match introduced the wrestling audience to the character of Zeus, who was in the movie No Holds Barred, the main antagonist of the movie No Holds Barred, and maybe I'll review No Holds Barred at a different time in a different video, but they had decided to use the antagonist of Hogan's movie as a character on wrestling television, and he got involved in this match, attacking Hogan before the steel cage match was able to begin. But that is not the steel cage match I'm going to be talking about. Turns out, in my research, Hogan and Bossman had quite a few steel cage matches, most of them at live events. Obviously preparing for that big steel cage match at Saturday Night's Main Event, where they would kind of get everything down and then do it on the bigger stage, because the matches are all very similar, the ones that I've seen 3 of them. There was another one that was held in Boston. This was in March of '89. And instead of having the big blue bars, which were commonplace by this point in the WWF, this particular match had the more traditional chicken wire and the cyclone fence. That match was okay. It was probably the weakest of the 3 Hogan-Bossman cage matches I've seen. It was a little bit weak sauce compared to the other 2. And the Saturday Night's Main Event one is kind of, with the exception of Zeus, it's kind of the exact same match as the one I'm going to talk about. And the one I'm going to talk about is the match that they had in Madison Square Garden, which I first saw on a Best of Hulkamania VHS collector's video that came out in 1989. It was under the Coliseum video banner. And that was one of the things that a lot of wrestling fans don't get to experience now. And I know they have access to so much content nowadays, what with the WWE Network and having, just for $9.99, you can have pretty much every pay-per-view the WWE has ever put on at your fingertips, and to say nothing for WCW and ECW and a bunch of other things. However, back in the day, we used to have all these VHS tapes which would give us matches from house shows and from live events. That was the only way I could see Bret beat Flair for the title. So that particular video was a must-have for me, because Bret was just starting to become one of my favorites. And I was like, wait a minute, he won the title off TV and I couldn't see it? That's bullshit. But I sought out that tape, god damn it, and I wanted to see Bret beat Flair for the belt. So, but yeah, so you would get a lot of matches like this. You'd have like just entire videotapes that were just nothing but house show matches. That's how I got to see Ultimate Warrior versus Undertaker matches. That was how I got to see a bunch of things. A couple of Jake and DiBiase matches, which their matches were really good. So yeah, and also it was a great way to see Hulk Hogan matches, because Hogan wrestling on free TV was extremely rare back in the day. With the exception of pay-per-views and Saturday night's main events, you didn't really see Hogan wrestle all that much on free TV, so you had to pay for it, whether it be pay-per-views or attending house shows or buying these videotapes. They really did a great job of making Hogan feel like a special attraction, and that level of, today's modern era has gone the complete opposite direction, where they show you all the big guys constantly, so it's had the reverse effect where they don't feel that special, and if somebody doesn't show up on TV, you think that they're getting de-pushed or something, or they're injured, or something akin to that. It's like something bad must have happened, and you almost become used to them. And that's an unfortunate side effect of the way the business has changed. But back in the day, guys like Hogan, if you kept their appearances rare, their matches were a big deal. And it's one of the reasons Saturday night's main events was always a big deal to me, because it was almost a guarantee you would see Hogan wrestle on those, at least a few times a year. And you get these Coliseum video matches, and this particular steel cage match with the Big Bossman was very special to me. It was a couple of firsts for me. It was the first steel cage match I ever saw. So try to imagine that at my age, the first image you have of the steel cage is the big blue bars. Like I said, the match in Boston had the cyclone fence, but this one, the MSG match, had the big blue bars, which were commonplace following WrestleMania 2, and then for a long time after that. It wasn't until about late 90s, early 2000s that they went back to the more traditional cyclone fence. But personally, and maybe it's because I was exposed to it first, I always preferred the big blue bars. The reason for that is because I felt like you could do more with it. I felt like, the gaps were big enough to where you could have guys hang off of it and do cooler spots off of it. And to me, the cyclone fence was more limiting in that aspect, that you couldn't get too many really cool moves out of it. Even things, to reference another one, like Owen Hart and Bret Hart at SummerSlam 94, the spot where Owen gets his legs tied up in the steel cage. You can't do that with a cyclone fence, but you can do it with the big blue bars. So I just felt like it opened the door creatively for things that you could do, and that was one of the reasons I preferred it. I've heard from actual wrestlers and workers that they prefer the cyclone fence because the big blue bars, A, they hurt more, from what I was told, and B, it was harder to take a full-fledged bump into them, because the gaps are so big that it was harder to gauge how you would bump into it without hurting yourself. Whereas the cyclone fence, you can pretty much throw your body into it, and you're gonna get impact out of it. And I can understand those reasons, but for me, it's like, for the sake of creativity, I always did prefer the big blue bars. And this was my first exposure to that, so this match is very special to me in that aspect. It's also very special to me, and I wanted to highlight this match because it's hard to imagine anybody saying this about a Hulk Hogan match, but this match was not only violent, it also had my personal first holy shit moment. What the hell just happened? Like a big, huge spot that seemed legitimately dangerous and legit kind of freaked me out about how, extreme it was. Is it that extreme by today's standards? Probably not, but again, to me at 5 years old, growing up a fan of 80s wrestling before the envelope had been pushed to the extreme, this spot was a big deal to me, and the spot was, Bossman was getting ready to climb out the cage. Hogan scaled up the cage and caught him in a front face lock to keep him from climbing out, and then proceeded to superplex the 350-pound Big Bossman off the top of the steel cage, which still looks impressive today. Again, it's not quite as insane as, a thumbtack spot or being hit with fire or barbed wire or anything crazy like that, but at that day and age, it was oh, holy shit, what just happened? That's insane. And credit to both Hogan and Bossman, they sold it like the spot killed them. Like, we just fell 15, 20 feet or whatever. And again, it's not Undertaker throwing Foley off the cage or Shane jumping off the top of the Hell in a Cell or anything like that, but it was pretty extreme for its day, and it really left an impact on me when I was younger. I guess you could say for me it was kind of like Snuka diving off the cage on top of Morocco. It was just that kind of wow, this is some crazy shit. And it's hard to imagine that a Hulk Hogan match was what did that to me, because Hogan was known for being very limited, very much stuck in his own style and his own formula. But Hogan could throw a few crazies out there when he wanted to, and this was definitely a great example of it. You want to see some more craziness out of Hogan, check out his match with Great Muta from 1993. He did an Insiguri in that match, and I almost shit my pants when I saw it. I was like, what the fuck? Hogan, I didn't know Hogan could even execute that damn thing, but yeah, that spot became instantly memorable to me. The Boston cage match did not have the superplex spot, at least I don't think it did. I don't remember it having it. And the Saturday Night's Main Event one did, but it didn't look as good. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it was the camera angle or what, but it looked much better in the MSG match. The match was also pretty violent. Again, more violent than... We were just starting to go into a phase where Vince was steering more and more away from graphic violence, but you would get blood every once in a while. And here, it looked like Bossman got busted open hard way. He got cut right above the eye. And then late in the match, when a chain was brought into play, Hogan hit him with it a couple of times, and then it became the more traditional, like, Crimson Mask. And... again, I didn't see that much. This wasn't the first time I saw it, but I didn't see it that much as a kid, and that also left an impression on me as well. So to me, I had just seen, like, the most violent match I'd ever seen up to that point. And, of course, Hogan won, no surprise. And I have a lot of fond memories of this match for those reasons alone. It just really stuck with me. It just really stood out in my memory as just this violent, crazy spectacle that I hadn't really been exposed to prior to that. How does the match hold up upon reviewing it? I still think it's pretty good. It's not... Again, violence-wise, it's been far surpassed many times. And even before this, you had matches like the dog collar match and a lot of NWA matches that surpassed this. But you still have those fond memories of the first time you experienced something like this. And to me, the superplex spot still looks kind of insane, and the fact that they sold it like they died and stayed down for a good minute or two to sell it, I thought was really effective, because if you're not going to make that spot the finish, at least sell it like it killed you. So I thought it was handled pretty effectively, and overall it's a nice, brawling, violent match that's indicative of what steel cage matches should be, minus Slick's interference. That's really my one knock on it, is that I hate when cage matches have outside interference, because it really, to me, the whole point of a steel cage match should be that it keeps interference out of it. And far too many cage matches have outside interference in it, which to me kind of kills the gimmick. But one thing I will praise it for, though, is that they made the clear distinction that the only way to win was through escaping the cage. Pinfalls and submissions didn't count, which I've always been an advocate of. If you're going to do a steel cage match, it should be either escape the cage or pinfall and submission. It shouldn't be both, because it creates too many situations. If it is both, it creates too many situations where it's like, well, why'd you dive off the cage when you could have just jumped out, or not jumped out, but climbed out, why didn't you climb out when you had this opportunity, or why are you going for the pin when you could have just climbed out, or whatever. I mean, it creates too many contradictions, and I'm glad that this one kind of stuck to that. Oh, okay, you can only win by escaping the cage, which to me, it's like, again, I don't care which one you pick, just pick one, and I think the psychology of the match works much better, because I mean, just a perfect example, the superplex off the cage. Hogan did it to keep Bossman from escaping, and because there were no pinfalls and submissions, you couldn't get a spot where Bossman rolled on top of Hogan, or Hogan rolled on top of Bossman right after superplexing him. So you weren't going to get an instant pinfall after that huge spot, which allowed them more time to sell it, and allowed the effects to have, in some ways, more of an impact, because they would have to keep working the match after that fucking superplex spot. So I don't know. For me, it just makes more sense if, again, it's either one or the other: pinfall, submission, or escape the cage. And this one stuck to escape the cage, which I like. But yeah, like I said, it was the first cage match I ever saw, so obviously I'm kind of biased towards it. But it is a lot of fun for me. Like I said, I think it's the best of the Hogan Bossman cage matches. I think it surpasses their Saturday Night's Main Event one for sure. And if you haven't seen this match, I I don't know if you can find it on the network. I found it online on Daily Motion if you want to watch it that way. I wish I still had my VHS tape. I wish I still had a VHS player, but, you know, technology advances. So, but yeah, that's really all I have to say about this match. A lot of fond memories, very violent for its time, and very memorable for its time, and one that's worth checking out, and one that I hold in very high esteem for all the great memories and all the great firsts that it provided to me. So, that is the end of my review of this particular match. For future entries of the Classic Match series, I've decided to take your participation into account. So, how are we going to do this? Because I thought, well, I'll just say, hey, pick one, and then the one that gets picked the most by the most people, I'll just do that one. I was like, well, that won't work, because let's say I get 20 people that pick matches, I could get 20 different answers, so that doesn't really work. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of 3 matches every month, and you all get to pick between those 3 matches, and the winner of that poll will be the classic match that I review. So I got to start making match lists out of this. So I'll have that up for you shortly, possibly in my next video where I do the best matches for June. Although I have to, you know, another little announcement here. I've decided that my match list for the month of June will not be a top 10. I don't know how many it's going to be yet. Simply put, there were so many matches I enjoyed this month that I decided to highlight as many as possible. So I don't know how many the final list is going to be yet, but I'm going to cover all of them, which will serve several functions. Not only will it allow me to highlight some really good matches that people might have missed, it also allows me to kind of do a retroactive review of some shows that kind of I didn't get around to reviewing when they first came out, like ROH Best in the World and New Japan Dominion and Best of the Super Juniors and a bunch of things like that. So, that is all I have for you now. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you all have got a lot planned for July 4th weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also, we got the start of the WWE Cruiserweight, the new Cruiserweight series that they're doing, so I guess I should do a video about that at some point, so I'll probably have that up later this week as well. So a lot to cover, a lot to cover, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I've got a lot planned for you guys. It's going to be great. So that is all I have for you now. Y'all keep enjoying your week, and I will see you all later.